All right, so let's talk about places to find water. And I have the article, I got to look it up, but we wrote an article a while back, and I think we actually did a podcast on it too. But it's about finding water in an urban area. And I'll just kind of go through this after you say your thing, but what are some of your ideas about finding water just in your house, basically? Not necessarily urban or anything, but just water that you wouldn't think about. Say you're completely out of water.
Well, the first thing for us, since we have a well, I'm going to go with our 50-gallon, reserve tank. Another option, if you don't have a well, is the best place to find a large amount of water. And I would think a lot of people know this, but your water heater. Depending on the size of your water heater, you have anywhere from 30 to 60 gallons of water sitting in there that you can use. Another option would be your toilets. I know that sounds gross, but I'm not talking about the water in the bowl.
But if you're dehydrated?
Yeah. But you can, the tanks in the back, that's where they hold the water. That's where the water comes in and then is, brought down into the bowl. So the water in the back of the tank of the toilet is, for all intents and purposes, clean.
Yeah, and even, it's kind of gross, but even the water in the bowl, if it hasn't been used, I mean, definitely filter the crap out of it. Literally filter the crap out of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, when the situation's that dire, I mean, you got to do what you have to do. There's even water in pipes around the house. I don't know if you want to bust open a wall or whatever, but like I said, when the situation's that dire, garden hoses, stuff like that, sprinkler systems. And somebody had mentioned, I put on here, I got to see where it is, but when you're talking about sprinkler hoses and sprinkler systems like that, Thomas from the Facebook group mentioned that sprinkler pipes build up bacteria, sometimes Legionnaires. Also, if the piping is black iron, it can contaminate the water with oil from its original manufacturer. Drinking Legionnaires is probably safe, but don't get it in your lungs. So just something to think about. I think at a situation like that, I'm going to be trying to find whatever water I can. Garden hoses, we all drank out of garden hoses when we were kids.
And we survived.
Yeah, I'm still here, so can't be all that bad.
Well, and I think you also have to consider a water feature. If you have a water feature, which I think is an added benefit, it's pretty, but it's also serving a dual purpose. So like our pond in the back. Mm-hmm. It's a pond because it's pretty.
Well, and it's a small one. How many gallons do you think that is?
Probably 50? at least 50 gallons. But it also, if we didn't have water, that would be a source.
And it's nasty. You'd have to filter it, but it's water.
Other sources, like if you have livestock, you're going to have water for them too.
We're going to need a whole bunch of water. Those horses drink a lot of water.
But you can get the high density polyethylene water tanks, like the water troughs. You can use those. Because that's when I was looking up water things, I was thinking, okay, so not only do we have to have water for ourselves, but if you don't forget your pets, you got to have water for your pets. And if you have livestock, you got to have water for them too. Mm-hmm.
And I'll leave a link to this article too. But you just kind of have to think outside. I say it all the time, but you got to think outside the box.
Yep.
In the city, I would be really leery about, they've got rivers and everything, but what kind of manufacturing plants and stuff are on those rivers? What are they putting in that water? And it's not, even if, say, the part of the river that you're on right here that you're thinking about getting water from, there's nothing around it. You got to think about, where is that water coming from? What is getting dumped in there? So, and most filters, just about every filter, there's not very many filters at all that will filter out chemicals. What was that? The spill recently?
There was the one in Toledo, or the one in Los Animas.
Well, the one you were talking about with Berkey, where they put out the statement.
That was I think that was in Toledo, and then that was a while ago. But it was some kind of weird chemical, and it would burn you.
Yeah.
Even if you used it on your skin, so you couldn't even use it on, take a shower or anything, or wash your hands with it. You could use it in your toilet, but if water splashed up on your butt, you'd burn your butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you'd take a shower and just fry yourself.
Yeah. But
just be aware of that chemicals, it'll filter out the microorganisms. Most filters will do that stuff. but the chemicals are a big thing. So when you're talking about, say in the city, there's sprinklers or whatever, or a pond in the park or golf courses, what kind of pesticides are they using to make the pretty flowers grow, all that stuff, right? That stuff is going to leach into, the pond or whatever's there. So you got to be careful with that stuff, golf courses and all that. You can get the water there as long as nobody else is thinking about it. I can just see, I get this vision of like people in Africa where everybody's around the pond, the water hole. But I don't know how. Well, I don't know how feasible that is.
There's other options too. Like there was a video, and we need to find that and put a link to that. The guy that made out of PVC, he made a little hand. Literally, he drilled the well, and he just was just turning it. He was standing on the back of his truck, just turning it.
Yeah, it's deeper and deeper and deeper
and
deeper.
And it was just a little. It was made from PVC pipe. Anyone could make that on their own, and it just gets like the surface groundwater, so you don't have to go very deep. But that would be something.
As you're doing it manually, I'm sure it feels like it's pretty deep, but not very deep. You're talking 100 feet, 50 feet?
Oh, no, probably like 10 feet.
10 feet?
Just to get down to the water table.
So, that would be something, especially if you live in a small area, an apartment or something. That would be something to think about, getting a tool like that to help you get that water. And if you knew a pretty secluded spot where you could do that and have it to where it's set up, and it's there and nobody's going to find it. Hopefully nobody follows you and finds out where you're going to get your water. It's an idea.
Yeah, but if you are in that kind of environment too, you got to remember how heavy water is. Mm-hmm. So when you're carrying water, it's going to be heavy. So that might be a good time to use like 2-liter bottles or something in a backpack.
Get one of those sticks with the 2 jugs of water on them.
Yeah, but you don't want people to see what you're doing or know what you're doing.
Learn how to balance it on your head. Yeah, that's true.
So maybe getting a big backpack so that you can put, even if you had to hike out and get 2-liter bottles, get 2 of them or 3 of them. Yeah,
and that depends on how far from that water source you are too. So, if it's a half a mile less than that, maybe you can get away with just grabbing one of the camelbacks or whatever and filling it up once a day, something like that. But yeah, stuff to think about. Before we get into tinfoil hat time today, I want to talk about a couple of myths that I found from Happy Prepper. And what it is, this first one here is rotate your water storage every 6 months to 2 years. And what they say in this is nonsense. Do you have any idea how long tap water is stored before it gets to your faucets? Years. So they also put, and I assume it's a she, but water is the universal solvent though. So it's more important than, like I said earlier, more importantly, it's what you store it in than how you treat it and all of that. So water can break stuff down and stuff can leach into the containers. So at the very least, and this is kind of what we said earlier too, at the very least, if you don't store it with any chemicals or anything and your containers are good enough to last a couple years, at least treat it when you're getting ready to use it. Another one is don't store bottled water on cement. It can leach chemicals into your water. Have you heard that one?
No.
And this one, I assume this one is for the big, 55 gallon drums when you're going to be keeping those in your garage or whatever, or outside. I don't, storing little gallons of water and stuff, we usually store it inside, and there's not a whole lot of space with cement. I suppose downstairs would be. But anyway, they say that this is a myth as well. It's the heated cement that can cause chemical reactions. So if you're in Arizona or something, you've got it stored on your back porch, or California, and it's just on the cement, that could possibly, and I don't know how, like I said, this is just an article, so take it for what it's worth, but that could possibly do something. So you want it in moderate temperatures, or get a pallet or something, right? And just lift it off the cement, just to be safe, better safe than sorry. Plus you get that clearance anyway if it floods or something like that. Not that a plastic container would get too damaged with flood water, but you've got a little bit of separation from the ground, maybe even little critters trying to get into it, chewing on it or something. I don't know. But those are 2 myths that I have. Do you have anything that might be a light bulb moment for anybody about water?
No, I did have, I think it's important, since if you're thinking about, you have your water storage, I think it's important to remember you need to have at least a gallon of water per person per day. At least a gallon
minimum,
of water.
Yeah.
Minimum. So I actually calculated out.
I read something that people use, the average person uses 100 gallons of water a day. That's insane.
Yep.
I believe it, but it's insane.
But you don't think about it because it's so
It's
available.
always on. Yeah, you get in the shower. You don't think about time limit. You just get in the shower. You do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it's early or it's cold, you just sit in there and you're like, oh.
You do that anyway.
Just mellow and just like it's like a therapy session.
In the water. But so I just kind of calculated out just to see, and so I think you need to have at least enough water for whoever's in your family for at least 3 days.
Yeah.
This includes your pets, it includes yourself, it includes anyone else that may be coming. So I think this is an emergency situation. So for our family, so if we have 7 people in our family and they have their significant others, so then we've got 14 people that we're going to have to be planning for. So that would be 42 gallons of water that we would need. Now if you factor in
14 people?
Yeah.
I'm bugging out.
Okay.
I'm leaving.
All right.
Or I'm pitching a tent on the roof or something where nobody can find me.
But then in
Sleeping
addition
with the horses. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, in addition to that, I figured for our animals, we need at least 15 gallons of water a day.
Yeah.
Because the horses can drink up to 5 gallons of water a day. And that's just on a normal thing. So, and then you got the chickens, the ducks. The
They're
ducks
all
aren't going to
getting
be I was going to say the ducks aren't going to be able to swim in their swimming pool every day that you change their water.
Ducks might turn into food at that point. So,
but the chickens, the dogs. So figure 15 gallons a day. So for a 3-day minimum, it would be 45 gallons. So for us to be sustainable for 3 days, 87 gallons of water, and that's bare minimum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot more than the whole little gallon a day you're thinking about. That's bare minimum for yourself, but there's a whole lot of different things that go into that scenario.
Yep. And then I also think it's important that you have different ways that you know how to purify water, because if you do find it and you've got the water but you don't know how to purify it or to make it safe to drink, then you're going to put yourself in a bad situation. So I think you need to know about, depending on where you live, boiling water. So for our elevation, we're at 6,800 feet. So we have to boil it for at least 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then you let it set. Disinfecting using the bleach method, and then water filters. And just like you said, remember, all water filtration systems are not created equal.
Yeah, make sure you
get
look
rid
it up.
of some things, but they're not going to get rid of everything. So maybe, combining these things so that you have a water filter, but then you're going to boil it too, or you're going to boil it and then you're going to purify it and then use your water filter.
Yeah. And I've got an article on the website too that I'll link to that tells you the size of different microorganisms, what filters will do what and all that. But yeah, if you're not going to be drinking out of a faucet or tap water, you got to learn how to do that stuff.
Yep.
Well, cool. All right. I think that's it for this. So